is the current Chief of Staff for Energy and Minerals Minister, Brian Jean. Vitor, you've been around politics for a long time. We worked together way back in 2010, 2011, 2012 to the Wild Rose days. You've been to a lot of annual general meetings for political parties. What do you think of this one? How do you size it up?
I've been to a ton. I've organized a lot. And, I did 5+ federal ones, all of the Wild Rose ones, and every UCP one since. This is amazing. The crowd size, the goodwill, the fact that it's new people coming in and sort of exercising their ability to get involved in politics. I mean, my entire political career, I've talked about how not enough people get involved in politics. Well, that's changing. And we saw lots of wonderful, normal people sort of showing up, getting involved. There were 2,000 people in the room last night to debate, discuss, and vote on governance. Mm-hmm. I mean, that makes my heart sing.
Yeah. Look, there are nearly 4,000 people here, as you know. It's a crazy turnout. Nothing like it in Canadian history.
No.
Even at the federal level.
No, this would be a huge convention at the federal level.
You know, I talked to a lot of people walking around last night, and many of them said, to your point that you just made, and I'll ask you to follow up on it, we got involved because we kind of took government for granted. You know, we assumed things were going to go in the right direction. We trusted those we voted for. Something happened there and something shifted. There is a big group of people now that are saying, look, we believe in Danielle Smith, we believe in what the UCP is doing, and we want to come and have our voice heard.
People have confidence in the government. People have confidence in Danielle, but they also know that they need to be involved. They need to be seen. There's just this feeling that, if I'm not involved, there's a risk the government will drift away from me. And for the longest time, a lot of people, they didn't care about government. And then COVID kind of happened and they discovered the government cared about them.
Yeah.
And it could make decisions that impacted their lives, and they felt like they weren't getting a chance to be involved and be in the discussion. And I think most people are past COVID, but they still want to be involved in the discussion.
Let's talk Turkey a little bit. And I want to talk about the carbon tax carve-out. I'm sure most of you are aware of what's happened, but Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his government have decided to exempt the carbon tax on home heating oil, which is really for the maritime provinces, but yet not for natural gas and those of us that depend on natural gas here in the West. It seems asinine to me, frankly, that this would happen, dividing Canadians. But I want your thoughts on it and where you see this going.
There's two elements to this. I mean, one is just the pure dumb politics of it and the pure cynical politics of it. He's basically trying to bribe Atlantic Canada votes back. The Liberals have always counted on having at least 2/3 of all the seats in Atlantic Canada, and they're at risk of not doing anywhere near that well. So this was just pure bribery.
Yep.
But then the other part of it is that it's really actually very bad government, and it's very bad constitutionally, and it's very bad as a policy statement. He actually runs the risk of the Supreme Court reversing itself on the carbon tax. Mm-hmm. The Supreme Court twisted itself in a pretzel to give him permission to do a carbon tax on the grounds that it was a peace, order, and good government thing. We had to have a relatively uniform policy across all of Canada. And then Justin Trudeau canceled out that argument. So he's in a world of hurt, both politically and legally.
All right, let's bring it back to hear one more question before we go. We've got Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz standing by. She's going to join us in a second. I'm going to ask her about these very things. Hello, Minister. First, I want to ask you about the motion that Minister Schultz brought forward in the legislature, basically saying let's scrap this carbon tax. It should be equitable for everybody. More on the motion and the fact that the NDP voted against it in Alberta.
It was weird. So first, let me congratulate the minister. She's been doing an amazing job of speaking out on behalf of Albertans on this file and leading that fight with Ottawa. She's just been killing it. But yeah, the NDP had introduced a relatively similar motion. They told us they wanted to do an emergency debate on this. They said things in the media that suggested there wasn't going to be too much difference between us and them. And then we bring them a motion to debate and vote on, and they vote against it. But not only did they vote against it, about a third of their members didn't bother to show up to vote. So the first vote in the new legislature after the election, and a third of the NDP don't bother showing up to cast their vote. If I was somebody from one of those ridings, if I had been involved in electing an NDP member, and I certainly wouldn't be, but if I were one of their voters, I'd be really annoyed. They elected 38 of them. 38 of them should have been voting. They should have voted yes, but instead we only had like 25 or 26 show up to vote no.
Yeah, very good points. Listen, you and I could talk politics all day.
Absolutely.
We've got a few standing by. Thank you for taking some time.
No, my
Vitor,
pleasure.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Vitor Marciano, Chief of Staff to Energy and Minerals Minister Brian Jean. And Vitor has been around political circles for a long, long time and a solid conservative voice in Alberta. One of the things I want to follow up on, Vitor mentioned the vote as we're going to welcome in Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz here momentarily. This motion that was brought forward in the legislature on the carbon tax, 46 United Conservative Party members, UCP MLAs, the one independent voting in favor, 26 NDs voting against it. Come on in, Minister, have a seat. So really a big surprise. Listen, we're going to kick right into the divisive stuff on the carbon tax. First of all, good to see you. Thank you for coming. Appreciate it.
So great to see you.
Do you ever rest?
Not a lot. I had some kids' activities early morning this morning, and of course, here for all of the excitement that we have in store for us today.
Well, we always appreciate your time, and Vitor was just saying, complimenting you on the work that you're doing on the file. I know how busy you are. Thank you for all of that. The AGM, first of all, let's touch on it. Nearly 4,000 people. What do you think? It's amazing, isn't it?
How amazing. Like even yesterday at our panel, kicking it off at 2 o'clock on Friday afternoon, registration has just opened and there was standing room only.
Yeah.
Wild.
It's so good. It's like a family reunion, I was saying earlier, but many of the members of our family were getting to meet for the first time.
Yeah.
And boy, they're from all over the province, so it's really cool. Hey, I just asked Vitor about this motion. I don't know if you can remember the wording exactly, but tell us more about the motion that you brought forward on the carbon tax.
The motion that we put forward was really one that recognizes the fact that the carbon tax is driving up the cost of really everything, right? From gas to groceries to utilities, and then calling on the federal government to, of course, scrap the carbon tax. And, with what we've been seeing across the country, we saw the federal NDP side with Pierre Poilievre on their carbon tax motion. I thought, this is a great opportunity for the NDP to join us and show that they've been listening to Albertans who do not support a carbon tax, who never have. And, again, they voted against it.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. Maybe I'll think out loud for a second, which is always dangerous, but you would think the Saskatchewan NDP have sided with Premier Scott Moe and the Conservatives. And now even Jagmeet Singh's federal NDP have said, yeah, we need to do something about this to make it more equitable. We called to scrap it entirely, but disappointed. I'm disappointed in Rachel Notley and her tribe. Is it fair to say that their finger is just not on the pulse of what Albertans are feeling?
I think you're exactly right. And Saskatchewan's a great example where the NDP has supported the government in their opposition to the carbon tax. They've recognized that things like the clean electricity regulation are just not doable. Yet here in Alberta, Rachel Notley and the NDP, they chose Justin Trudeau once again. I just think it's so tone deaf based on what we're actually hearing from everyday Albertans right across the province that, at a time like this, especially where affordability is a top concern, they want to see that carbon tax gone. And quite frankly, a consumer carbon tax, it is not doing anything to reduce emissions. Yeah. Like right now, Canadians, they deserve a break.
Well, there's where the rubber hits the road, 100%. It doesn't. And in fact, as the Premier has said many times, and I know I've heard you say the same thing, if we could get more of our product to international markets, to other places on this globe, we would actually help clean up emissions, get people off coal-fired plants, make a big difference. Let's talk about the net zero calls from the federal government. By 2035, they're expecting us to do this. It's impossible to do it. The cost that it would mean to Albertans, maybe touch on those things.
Yeah, they just have this pattern of making these wild announcements to appease their climate activist friends, right? They fly around the world. They're at the G8, at the UN, making these announcements, and then they just tell the provinces, we'll make these commitments and then you can figure it out. Well, on electricity, their net zero clean electricity grid by 2035 is just completely not doable. The technology doesn't exist. It hasn't been tested anywhere. It would really put pressure on affordability and grid stability. So the risk there, at a cost, and you're exactly right, cost estimates are that this would be trillions, over $1 trillion. Certainly billions, but but likely over $1 trillion. So who's going to pay for that? It's everyday people, whether it's on their taxes or their bills. And when we're talking about grid reliability, that's actually serious. Those are real health and safety concerns that in the middle of the night, think about the month of January, it is dark, it is cold. Albertans expect to be able to flip on a light switch and have power in their homes. And that's just a non-negotiable for us.
Seems pretty reasonable. Seems pretty reasonable. Listen, one more and I'll let you go. Just a message to our members. We've got so many watching online. We're live on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and obviously we're going to carry the Premier's speech here in a bit. Just a thought to those that didn't make it, to those that did, to our family. What would you say?
I just want to say thank you so much. I mean, being here in this room yesterday and this morning, it is just so exciting to see our passionate, driven, conservative members from right across the province coming together to support us, to make sure that their voices are heard and that we continue, as a united conservative team and certainly as MLAs across the province to represent our grassroots membership. And I think it's awesome to see so many people wanting to get involved and so much excitement for our future.
Well said. Thank you for your work.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Appreciate it. My pleasure.
Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz joining us, and boy, is that lady busy on her file and all the things that she's doing, standing up for Albertans. And I think as we look ahead to the Premier's speech today, which is coming at 1, and again, we're going to carry for you live, we will see a big theme on pushing back to Ottawa, or standing up to Ottawa and pushing back against some of their outrageous policies, the net zero grid, the cap on our oil and gas production, all of the things that we do well in Alberta, and frankly, help us to contribute to the Federation. It would seem like the federal Liberals want to step on our hands and prevent us from helping Albertans and helping Canadians. I'm sure we'll see the Premier touch on that. Come on in, Minister, have a seat. We've got another guest joining us now. The man of the hour. Everybody wants to talk to you. Finance Minister Nate Horner, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so listen, I know how busy you've been because there's been a couple of bills passed in the legislature. Is there 2 or 3 already with your name on them?
Well, they're tabled. They're not passed yet. But
Sorry,
I think we have four on the floor now out of Treasury Board and Finance.
Okay, so let's chat about them. For many of our members are pretty knowledgeable. They follow the things that are happening in the legislature. But talk on the tax bill first of all. I guess this was the Premier's promise and commitment to Albertans.
Yes. We're amending the Taxpayer Protection Act. So since 1995, I'm sure most Albertans know that we did have legislation in place where you would need a referendum to bring in a general sales tax.
That's right.
We're amending that legislation to also include the corporate tax rate and threshold and the personal tax rate and threshold. If a government wanted to increase taxes in that way, they would have to first go to the people and ask in a referendum. That's Bill 1.
Okay, speaking of referendum, some talk on the Alberta Pension Plan and exploring that possibility. Maybe touch on that and the fact that obviously we're still gathering feedback from Albertans on the issue.
Definitely, and yesterday was an interesting day. Obviously, we had our FPT via Zoom with Federal Minister Chrystia Freeland and the other provincial finance ministers at the request of the Ontario minister. Was very interesting. I'd say the biggest takeaway is that the federal government has agreed that they would involve the chief actuary and get an opinion on the legislation to try to give clarity to Albertans that are, learning about the potential of this around the number. So that was the big takeaway from the meeting yesterday, and it may change how we engage with Albertans. Mr. Dinning and his panel is still out in the field. I think there's 3 more telephone town halls scheduled throughout November. I think those will continue, and then we will probably ask Mr. Dinning to provide some kind of a interim report or assessment to Cabinet just to get a good understanding of where Albertans are at and what they've learned while we await further clarity from the feds.
I think what's interesting about this, it's funny, the emotion and fear of a subject has an impact on people.
Certainly.
And there's no question about it. I love the saying, you can't counter emotion with logic. But I look at a province like Quebec. They have their own pension plan. So, we're not going into uncharted territory with what we're exploring here.
No, Quebec has always had their own pension plan. They were never part of the CPP, but there's always been a withdrawal formula and process within the CPP Act. And if you look back to the discussions that the premiers and finance ministers of the day back in the 60s had, it was absolutely necessary to them that they knew that that was there.
Yep.
They would not have joined the pension plan if they knew they couldn't unwind themselves at some point if they felt they needed to. So I think that's important. But you're not wrong. This is a very emotional issue. That's certainly not lost on me. And what I've said and what the premier said is that, you know, we would never take something to the people without first knowing that it had substantive support from Albertans, but also that they had a complete clarity on what they were being asked and what the implications would be. And I think that's really important for every Albertan to understand, you know, regardless of where you might sit on this, if you're very against, if you're very for, if you're in the middle wanting to learn more, we hear you. We want to provide that clarity, but we would never ask you a bad question.
All right, very well said. Listen, a couple of things we should touch base on. Auto insurance premiums, some relief for drivers coming.
Yeah, so we put a pause on January 25th of 2023. The pause will expire at the end of the calendar year. We're pursuing longer term reforms, but in the meantime, we did want to bring in some short term changes to provide price protection to Albertans. So what we've done is we've given the Automobile Insurance Rate Board some more teeth, I guess we could say. They'll have the ability to ask insurance companies for rate reductions if they deem necessary. Also provide some further profit safeguards, I guess, from excess profits on the back of Alberta premiums. And also we've provided price protection for what we're calling good drivers. I know that's a little bit difficult to define, but we worked with the rate board and industry to come up with these definitions. It was very important to the premier that good drivers know that their rate could only increase at the rate of inflation for Alberta for this year, while we pursue these longer term reforms.
So many things going on in your portfolio for sure. So listen, it's good for you to come on and provide some depth and chat with folks. I'm going to break away from that for a second, Minister. We got nearly 4,000 people here. This is the largest gathering, annual general meeting for a political party in Canadian history. Maybe your thoughts on that, and what's the vibe you're getting when you go around and chat with folks?
Well, it's incredible, and I guess the vibe that I'm feeling is a lot of positive energy. I think people are very pleased with Premier Smith. Everyone I bump into is talking about what a great job she's doing, and so, you know, I think that's what I'm hearing. It's kind of we're still in this rebirth since the election with a new leader, and I feel excitement.
Yeah, listen, it's fabulous. Do you got a big group come from your constituency?
Fairly large, yeah, considering that a decent drive to get here.
Yeah.
It's impressive. Yeah.
It's really neat. Listen, thanks for your time. I know you got lots to do. You got other interviews. Appreciate you coming by.
Appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. Finance Minister Nate Horner joining us. So much going on. You're live at the UCP Annual General Meeting. Nearly 4,000 people registered here. It is the largest turnout in political history for an AGM. It's quite remarkable. If you weren't able to join us this time, we wanted to be able to bring it to you, so we're doing this live broadcast. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitter, trying to show you some of the things behind the scenes. We did go around and chat with some folks last night. We'll show you more of that in a few minutes. Bringing on some special guests. We're going to go live here with conversations until 1 o'clock. The Premier will give her speech at 1 o'clock, and then we'll do a bit of a wrap, and it'll be great. So much more to come. I see another guest coming in here, so it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Marshall Smith, who is the Chief of Staff. Good to see you, Marshall.
Good to see you, Bruce. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Look, there's so much I could talk to you about. Maybe I'll start with this. The vibe here, nearly 4,000 people. You've been around politics for a long time. Have you ever seen anything like it?
You know, Bruce, I've been in politics for almost 30 years. I have never seen anything like this. It is at times electric. There's a lot of people here. it's amazing to see conservatives come together like this. Like, it is really, really something.
It was fun being in the hospitality suites last. You and I are both teetotalers, so but there were a lot of people having a lot of fun. And some heavy heads this morning.
For sure.
But it's like a big family reunion, and we're meeting a lot more people from the family that we might not even have known.
It is. It's really inspiring to see. Obviously, we are a coalition party. There's different views. One of the things I love about conservatism is that there's room in the room for different views, which is great. I mean, often, on the left, unless you, subscribe to the orthodoxy, you're not allowed to participate. And so that's a very different thing about our party that, a lot of people are welcome.
Love it. Listen, want to talk to you about the Alberta Way, the addiction, the recovery, the methods that we're putting in place in Alberta. It's different. And but maybe your story first, Marshall, if we could, so people can identify. I mean, you know this space better than most. You had a tough go. You have a great story that you were able to pull yourself back up, and now you're leading the way for others.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, obviously, a lot of people know addiction and recovery is very near and dear to me. I'm in recovery from addiction. I spent several years of my life as a homeless addict on the streets of Vancouver. Obviously, those were really difficult times in my life. That was, almost 20 years ago. And in July, I celebrated 19 years of recovery, which has been great. And today I find myself as Chief of Staff to the Premier of Alberta, which is a little bit amazing and unexpected. But those are the gifts that recovery gives to you. Like those are the things that you can do when you work hard and get your life back and strive with it.
So we are so lucky. If ever there was an expert in a field, it's you in recovery and addiction. So more on the Alberta Way, what we're trying to do here, in our philosophy as it differs from the lefts, from the NDs.
Yeah. Well, the Alberta model, or so it has become known, is starting to become known the world around. We're getting a lot of interest from other jurisdictions on what we're doing here. Our model is grounded in a very deep belief that we will not leave anybody behind, that nobody is beyond recovery, right? That recovery is possible no matter how far down the hole you've gone. And the reality is the beliefs of the left are just simply not that way. They don't believe that. They believe that we just need to take an approach that keeps people comfortable, and safe while they continue to kill themselves. That is certainly not something we ascribe to.
Let's follow up on that, because I got to tell you, there's few things that really cut to the core of people like the issue of safe supply. And for those of you that don't know, I mean, safe supply, I guess, is the foundational belief that continue to provide drugs for people in appropriate doses, and they'll be better off somehow, that they won't result in crime. We're taking care of them in that fashion. It is not the way to get people recovered.
That's right. Well, look, safe supply is leftist terminology. We don't use those words because we don't believe that there is such thing as a safe drug supply. But they use the term safe supply. That's not a medical term. It's a marketing term, and it's a term that is designed to market their policy. Their policy is to take pharmaceutical drugs, pharmaceutical versions of drugs, heroin, crystal meth, cocaine, opioids, and give those to addicts so that they can use them instead of buying drugs on the illicit market.
And obviously, sorry, carry on.
Well, look, we went through this with OxyContin. OxyContin was the original safe supply. And the left uses the same words that Purdue Pharmaceuticals used to market OxyContin, right? They're using the same terminology. They say that public health will benefit when there is a legal regulated market of opioids. They say that we shouldn't be afraid of that's opiophobia, and don't be such a teetotaling prohibitionist. They say that only the people for whom these are prescribed will use them. Those assertions are impossible to reconcile when laid up against the millions of deaths that have been caused by free-flowing OxyContin into the community. That's what's happening in British Columbia right now. Luckily, here in Alberta, under the leadership of our Premier and former Minister Mike Ellis and now Dan Williams, we have made that illegal in Alberta. So the so-called safe supply is not allowed here, and we're already starting to see significant harms in BC. We won't allow that to happen.
Listen, few things give me as much pride in being a member of this team as the work we're doing in that area. And you're a large reason why, so thank you. One more question for you. We're going to throw to a video here in a minute of some folks we spoke to last night, asking them about the Premier. But I put you on the spot a bit. Look, you work as close with her as anybody.
Pretty close.
Your thoughts on her leadership, on the type of individual she is, how she manages all of this?
Your guess is as good as mine. She has Wonder Woman powers. Look, the Premier is one of the most disciplined, personally disciplined political leaders that I have ever worked with. She is disciplined in terms of the hours she keeps, her sleep, her diet, her schedule. Admittedly, she is a lot to keep up to. But she is, and she balances that out by being a lot of fun. And we have a great time doing what we do for the people of Alberta. She's amazing to work for, but you got to keep up. So bring some running shoes.
Yeah, I hear you. Listen, thank you. Good
Thanks,
to see you. Appreciate it.
Have a good convention.
Marshall Smith, Chief of Staff to Alberta Premier Danielle Smith, our guest, and the big reason why Alberta is doing so well on the recovery and addiction side, and what we're trying to do to help Albertans and get through this crisis. Another interview coming up. First, we were on the floor last night. We spoke to a bunch of folks about the Premier, about Danielle. What is it that you like about Premier Danielle Smith? What draws you to her? Here's a sampling of some of the responses we got. And why you think she's succeeding.
I followed her campaign and I liked how she answered questions. She was honest. She never shied away. She always answered very truthfully.
I think she's for the people, and she's just a very intelligent and wonderful person, and she's doing a great job so far, and I couldn't be more proud of her.
What is it about Danielle Smith that you like?
I appreciate Danielle's can-do spirit and her leadership style. I think she speaks the way I want to hear a leader speak. I think that she absolutely has our best intention, her best intentions put forward every day. And I just really admire and respect her.
The reason is I'm fortunate in the role I have in my day-to-day. I've met the Premier a few times, and you know what, just meeting her, she actually cares. That she genuinely, she cares for the best of the province, the best for the party, taking the province for everyone. The key thing for me is I feel like I'm included in the process.
What is it about Danielle? What is it about Premier Smith that you like, Jaspreet, and you think Albertans are enjoying, because they're really coming on side?
Well, the first and the most important thing, she always stands for Albertan, and that's a big thing. With even the carbon tax, with the Alberta pension plan, that's all for us, for each individual.
UCP is a big part of Alberta, and Danielle Smith has done a lot for Alberta.
I started listening to her a lot on her radio shows. I like the way she operated on her talk shows. And when she started to run, I went to a lot of her rallies with her groups and everything else. And I was, voted her in.
I think the Premier's demonstrating now that she's standing up for Alberta. She's standing up within our federation. And I'm very pleased that she's our Premier. And I look forward to supporting her.
So this is what Danielle is. Danielle is a true Albertan who do understand the value system of Alberta, who's a fighter, who understand the needs of Albertans and ready to fight with Ottawa.
Unlike our Prime Minister, she's not an empty vessel. She understands the issues, she gets it, and she has the pulse of people across every corner of the province. She listens. She actually cares about what people are saying.
What do you see in her? What draws you to her? What do you think draws Albertans to the Premier?
Well, a very unique thing for me was I got to meet Danielle a long time ago, and she was the, of course, the MLA for the riding that I now represent. So, Danielle, Premier Smith and I over the years have had a lot of conversations about exactly that, is bringing back the Alberta Advantage, and she has done just that. She's that leader that's hyper focused on making sure that Alberta, the Alberta youth, has a future, that we're going to have balanced budgets, and that those kids that are going to school right now and they're educating themselves are going to have a job when they get out, in high paying jobs, so that they have a future here.
Tell me more about the Premier.
Minister of Arts, Culture, and Status of Women, Tanya Furr, joining us now. Look, that was some of the reaction from some of the people we were talking to last night, their thoughts on Premier Danielle Smith. How about we start with that? Look, how have you viewed her leadership? What kind of things do you see in Premier Smith?
She's extraordinary. I don't know how she does it all. The more people I talk to that get to meet her and get a chance to see what she's all about are so impressed by her genuineness, her commitment, her common sense principles, and her passion for Alberta. And that's what brings all of us Conservatives together.
Arts, culture, and the status of women really is a big ministry.
Yeah.
What would some of the things be that you're focusing on right now? Your mandate letter, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah, for sure. So Premier recognized the importance of arts by adding arts to the ministry title. I'm meeting with so many stakeholders right now, focusing on how we can focus on and celebrate more Alberta artists, and how we can make sure we make arts and culture as affordable and accessible.
Were you up late?
I was not. I actually was not. As affordable and accessible to as many Albertans as possible.
Yeah. Listen, you're doing great work. Comment on this convention. I've been asking everybody this.
Yeah.
You've been to a lot of them. This is remarkable in terms of turnout. Nearly 4,000 people. What's your takeaway?
The turnout is incredible. The way it's been organized has been amazing, but it's the feeling of unity and people coming together and excitement for what the values that we do all share as Conservatives and how we love our province. And you can just feel the energy in the room. I can't wait for Premier's speech. I know, I can't wait.
It's coming. Listen, Minister, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you. Minister Tanya Furr, again, arts, culture, and the status of women. Yes, we are counting down. We're getting closer to the Premier's speech. She'll be speaking at 1 o'clock. We're going to carry it live, and then we'll have a little discussion after the speech. So we're going to stay with you. If you've just joined us, again, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, live at the AGM for the United Conservative Party here at the BMO Centre in Calgary. We actually had to move here. The initial venue couldn't handle the amount of people that we had coming. So nearly 4,000 people, and we're so thrilled to be able to bring you in. Come on in, Minister. We're so thrilled to be able to bring you into the AGM with us. We've got Minister Rick McIver, Municipal Affairs, joining us. Minister
Bruce,
good to see you.
Great to be here.
First, full disclosure. I have known this gentleman 20 years or more. I remember moderating political forums back in my TV days.
I know where you go. Yep.
I don't think I'll tell the full story, but I remember moderating forums when you were running for mayor. And listen, you've been around it a long time. So this question for you means more, I think, than most. What are you seeing differently that we've got nearly 4,000 people here? What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think there's different new people, members that weren't maybe involved here a couple, 3 years ago that are here now. I suppose they got some different attitudes and some different ideas, and that'll all probably show itself in the voting on the resolutions.
It will. Look, we're a big tent party, and unity is important. Speak to that, and I guess the ability of this Premier and individuals like yourself to bring everybody together.
Well, it does matter. We need to be a big tent party, and we need to have unity and stick together. And what I think for me is most important to remind myself of and everybody else is that the party only has one leader, and that's the Premier. And anybody that doubts that should remind themselves that Danielle won a fair and square leadership contest less than a year ago. She won the general election just half a year ago. So there's no doubt who's leading this party, and we need to listen. We all need to give her our advice, whether we agree with her or disagree on any particular issue, any particular day. But we need to be behind her, and we need to move forward together for the benefit of all Albertans.
Yeah, well said. I've disagreed with her a time or two, for what it's worth.
Well, I don't know enough to keep my thoughts to myself, right?
Well, that's it. But that's what makes you so unique. It's what makes you you. Look, you've been a public serving member in some capacity for a hell of a long time. What keeps you going? What keeps you at this?
It's a crazy way to live, but I feel like I'm blessed. I mean, I get to do work that I think matters to people. It makes a difference. I'm not sure everybody in the world gets to do that. I mean, all work has dignity and it all matters, but I'd rather be at the table or pounding the table and making my point than reading about it or seeing it in the news the next day and saying, well, if I had been there, I could have. So I still don't get my way, right, all the time. But it's rewarding. And listen, I ran this time for the sake of my kids and grandkids, because what we do in government actually matters for the future. And somebody my age, my future I feel like it is what it is. Obviously I can't predict everything, but my kids and grandkids and everybody's kids and grandkids are what we need to be thinking about, because that's really what's going to make a difference for Alberta as we go on. And that's what gets me up in the morning, because I really feel like I, in my way, can make that better.
How about the difference, Minister, in our United Conservative